What's going on, everybody? I'm Tank, and this is another episode of Roadie Reactions Rewind.
Get with this.
Welcome back to another edition of Roadie Reactions Rewind. This is a series where I take a trip back in time and relive the experiences of music that was important to me when I was growing up. Now, whether it was personal or emotional or influential, there's going to be a lot of music in this series that is extremely important to me, and I'm excited that I get to share it with you guys. And today, I think this is one that a lot of people have been curious about. I'm not sure, let me know. But we're going to take a trip back to 1995 when I was about 7-8 years old, where I discovered metal, as I know it today, for the very first time. And it's interesting because I discovered it in a movie. It was in the Mortal Kombat movie soundtrack. That whole soundtrack was loaded with tons of different metal. Besides the band I'm about to check out with you guys, it had Napalm Death, Typo Negative, KMFDM, tons of stuff. And it was really the first time where I ever heard that kind of sound. And for anybody that's not familiar with that movie, I want to show you a quick clip of where I first heard this song. And some of you that have seen this might bring back some memories.
Welcome.
Shout out 240p video quality. Anyways, that was the first time I had heard this band and this type of sound, and I convinced my dad to take me to a local record store and buy the record that this song was from. This is the first record that I ever purchased with my own money. And that record was also released in 1995, and this band just progressed from there for me, man. I have been listening to their music since then. I grew up with it, I loved it. It was very influential to not only me, but a lot of other bands in the mid to late 90s as they were forming. So, I tried to find a good live performance of this, and I failed. I really couldn't. But then I thought about it, and I really just want to share this with you as I discover it, which was the audio quality. And I honestly think the audio quality for 1995 is phenomenal. So, if you have a good pair of headphones, throw them on, let's check this out. I will link this original video in the description below. Today, I'm listening to Fear Factory with their first song I ever heard, Zero Signal. Let's go. Since there's no official lyric videos for this, I'm just going to be listening to the studio version of this. But if there's anybody that wants to read along with the lyrics while we listen to this, I'll put a link in the description below. I'm just going to sit here and listen along because I already know all the lyrics off the top of my head. And I'll probably stop here and there, share some experiences with you, and give you some cool tidbits about this album. So, let's go. If I remember right, the samples in this intro are from Terminator 2, which makes sense, but we'll get to that later. Before we go any further with that, I want to talk about that intro, because I remember when I first heard that, I thought that was the coolest thing ever, that the drums sounded like galloping horses. I remember thinking that when I was a kid. I remember telling my dad when I heard this, it sounds like horses. And then the thing I love about the guitar work there is that it's just a harmonic. Instead of holding down an actual note, their guitarist Dino is just making a harmonic over the strings and over the fret and doing triplets over that. And it sounds really rad. Let's continue on. And there's probably a lot more about this that I want to break down than I even think right now. So let's go. Oh. So normally in my videos, I would probably be headbanging my ass off, but since this is just audio, I really want to just sit here and focus, and really just take this all in like I'm trying to do it for the first time again. Because as this is one of my favorite Fear Factory songs still to this day, I don't listen to it all the time, so I'm kind of just absorbing. So the album that this song was from came out in 1995. It was called Demanufacture, and it's actually a concept album lyrically based off their singer Burton's version of a man that is struggling with a machine-based and led government, living in a world like that. So very Terminator-esque. There's a lot of stuff in their music that refers to machines overtaking man, stuff like that, and you can hear it in the music, which I think is really cool. It's very electronic influenced, and to me this band is still a staple of industrial metal. When this album came out, I mean, go online and look at all the reviews of this album. It's like top marks across the board. People at the time said that this is a staple of 90s metal, and it influenced a lot of other bands. God, there's so much more I want to talk, but let's keep going. I don't want to hold you up forever. I just remembered my dad never used to like music like this. He didn't like the growling and the double bass. Like, metal to him was Black Sabbath, Ozzy Osbourne. I remember telling my dad, and I think I thought it at one point, Burton's vocals at times when he sings sound Ozzy Osbourne-esque. And I think I remember, actually I know I remember telling my dad that Ozzy Osbourne was singing on this, and I'm pretty sure that's how I convinced him to buy this for me. And then the first time he heard it, he was like, that's not Ozzy Osbourne. But man, I always thought Burton's voice was so cool, and I've seen him live a few times, and if I'm being honest, he was always kind of hit or miss. But when this band started, 1989 was when they officially started, he's been the only consistent band member through the entire history of the band until last year. He quit the band. This band has had a lot of legal disputes with each other over ownership and who's been a part of what and stuff like that. And they do have I think Dino right now, their guitar player Dino, who's been in a lot of the metal scene and has worked on a lot of stuff, he's in the band now, and I think he's the only original member in the band right now, but I'll have to look that up. Let's go into this bridge. Oh, the electronic work in this is so awesome. I forgot who did the electronics on this. I know it wasn't the band members. I think they brought somebody in when they were recording. I'll have to look that up. But I think that's such a huge part of this sound, the industrial metal part of this. Like, the electronic work on this whole album is ridiculous. And it's interesting because I think it was Colin Richardson who originally was going to mix this album, and they hated his mix and they got somebody else to do it because from what I read, his emphasis on mixing was more the guitars and stuff like that and less of the electronics, and they wanted more of the electronics. And there are some of his mixes available in a compilation they've released, and they do sound different. But all around, man, this is just... it's the first time I ever heard something like this. And even today, I still find this incredibly unique. And their drummer, Raymond Herrera, was always a guy that I was so fascinated by because even when I started getting into different metal, he does kick patterns that are so insane to me. And I remember reading critics back in the day saying that there's no way he played that on the album. Like, it's got to be programmed. And it's not, because obviously when they record, they play to a click, but he's very well known for using triggers on his drums, especially the kick drums. And what triggers do for drums is it's most of the time it's a little clip that you can put on the head of a drum, and it's got a sensor in it, and it lines out to an audio interface. And you can adjust settings on it, and it basically keeps the rhythm or the intensity of when you're hitting it, keeps it the same across the board the whole time, no matter how hard you're hitting it. So with the trigger, like let's say this is his kick drum, he could literally be hitting the kick drum with his beater that hard, and it'll still sound like this on the album. Whereas even if he was hitting it this hard, it would still sound like that. So he's able to do that by kind of his moves being really light and really smooth. He doesn't have to exert a lot of energy. And there are a lot of metal drummers that do this with this kind of music and really fast double kick. This is not an exclusive thing to Fear Factory. Tons of drummers use triggers. Not a bad thing. And then I remember too, Christian, their bass player, got into a big argument with some of the band members because there was a big argument of whether he played bass on this album or not, because they got him as an official member of the band when they started this production cycle. He maintains that he recorded on this album, and so does their original drummer. And I know Dino has said in interviews that Christian never recorded any of this, and Dino did all of it. I don't know if there's any for sure fact or truth anywhere online that I can find, but I will I'll check it out. That just brought me back emotionally to being a kid again. Music is fucking awesome. One last thing before we go talk more about it too is that I'm always still impressed with this in the sense that the guitar work that Dino does is more rhythmic. He matches all the patterns of the kick drums rather than doing like crazy leads and solos like you hear in a lot of other metal. And I just think that's so unique and cool. So let's go talk about this. So I realized that was probably a really long reaction for just listening to audio of a song. So I'm not going to take up terribly much more of your time, but this is just fun, man. Just going back and reliving like the experiences and the memories of hearing these songs for the first time. And if you enjoyed this and you've never heard Fear Factory before, or you're not too familiar, I highly implore you to go check out more of their stuff, man. There are a couple albums that are harder to find because there have been a lot of legal disputes that they've had with labels and other members and stuff like that. But the album after this, and then the album after that, I mean, go check out Obsolete. That was one of my favorite albums when I was in like middle school and high school. Digimortal, Archetype. I mean, they've got music out this decade too. These guys are nonstop, man, and everything they put out is great. They can go from just being brutally heavy to writing really cool pieces like this, in my opinion, because even though the brutalness was there were some really cool musical parts, man. I love this band, and I hope there are some people out there that are hearing this for the first time, because you've got a lot of cool new music you can check out, and this was super fun. So if any of you guys are familiar with Fear Factory and have any cool memories or cool stories, drop them in the comments below. I would love for you to share those with me. And if this is your first time here, feel free to click subscribe. I release new videos all the time, so if you turn your alerts on, YouTube probably will not notify you when they come out, but they might. If you liked this video, I would greatly appreciate the like, as it does help me out. But if you disliked it, not a big deal, man. Thank you for watching this time. You are free to move on. I'm also on a ton of different social media. I have a Discord server that I hang out on often. I stream video games on Twitch from time to time, so if you're interested in any of that, I will put links to that in the description below. My handle on everything social media related is @TankTheTech. Thank you so much once again for watching, and I will be back very soon with another episode of Roadie Reactions.